Well, I'm here at Condycut Stables, talking to Martin and Belinda Keighley, horse race trainers of some renown and Cheltenham specialists, dare I say. Thank you both for letting me interrupt your busy morning. Go straight to the beginning, please. Can you tell us a little bit about your early lives in racing?
Well, at 16, I came down, while I was still at school. I had a week's work experience with Dave Nicholson. And,
from Yorkshire.
Yeah, from Yorkshire. And yeah, so that went really well. There was a job, he said there's a job waiting for you as soon as you finish school. So I was down like a shot because I was really keen to try and make it as a jockey. We just learnt so much with Dave Nicholson, and it was such a good team there. There was likes of Richard Dunwoody, Warren Marsden, David Bridgewater, all top jockeys. So you learnt a lot. You was taught how to do the job properly. It was amazing atmosphere. It was just probably the best years to start off in racing, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And that's where I met my wife Belinda.
And the Duke's a renowned, colourful character. Was he as fearsome as you read to work for?
He certainly was. You got plenty of bollockins, and most of the time you probably needed one. But no, he's a great guy. Even after you'd had a bollockin, you'd see him 5 minutes later, and he'd be perfectly fine with you. And yes, he was strict, but you
probably needed it.
Yeah, and you had to do the job properly, as simple as that. So we learnt so much from him.
And for me, I was brought up in the village, so I started riding out for the Duke when I was 10 or 11, and after a year or so was riding out every day before school, missed the school bus, and my mum kindly took me to school every day. So I rode out 7 days a week. On Sundays you got to school with Richard Dunwoody. Obviously I was just riding the lead horse, but he was brilliant. The Duke was like a second father to me. In fact, one week I went in on Sunday and said I couldn't ride out that week because my dear old mum's Morris Minor was going in for its MOT, and he said, no problem, I'll take you to school. And he took me to school all week, and we used to be dropped at the bottom of the drive. It wasn't cool to be driven up to the door, and the Duke insisted on driving me up to the door, which I was embarrassed about, but I think it's probably quite cool now that he drove me to school for a week. But he'd do anything for you. I mean, yeah, he did tell you off and stuff. He probably deserved it, but kept us all on the straight and narrow. I think we all learnt so much. The academy that went through him, and so many people that are still in racing and at the top of their game, from trainers to bloodstock agents to jockeys now, that all started with us at the Duke. It's unbelievable.
I would imagine that people that have heard of his reputation would be thinking, well, go on then, tell us a story. Is there anything you can repeat?
Crikey. Yeah, riding out, this was at Jack Dawes Castle actually, and Warren Marsden and a few of the other jockeys just said I need to show more aggression when I'm race riding, and we were walking down the track to go to the gallops, and it was a fourth lot, so quite often the Duke wouldn't come out for when there was later lots, and they said, come on, get your blood up, go. And I was on a very good ride, and what would jump well, Warren said, go on, jump those 3 edges in a row, show us some aggression. So to their shock, I turned this horse around and jumped these 3 hedges, and then went across to the gallops, and we cantered at the gallops, and out popped the Duke, waving his arms, and said, we'll see you lot in the office when we get back in. So straight in the office, I was expecting the biggest bollocking from the Duke, and actually Warren Marsden got the biggest bollocking because the Duke knew I wouldn't have gone ahead and done that on my own accord, and Warren got the bigger bollocking than I did. But yeah, that was still quite a scary moment.
We all ought to write a book, actually. I'm sure
there's lots more I could tell you, but the language would be quite bad and probably take too long to tell you.
We'll save them for part 2 maybe. And when you were working there, you rode some of the top horses that the yard had at the time. Was it ever a little bit frustrating that you didn't get to ride them in the big races?
Just a privilege to ride. We probably took it for granted actually. Just the quality of horses the Duke had was just unbelievable. But I was lucky enough to be the work rider for Viking Flagship, the first lot, which top class 2 mile chaser, and Barton Bank, obviously a Gold Cup horse. So to ride quality of horses, and was just a great buzz. And I did get to ride quite a few nice horses for the Duke. A nice horse called Hairshot, and I won a couple on him. I was the first jockey to ride Relkeel.
Got him beat.
Finished third on him somehow. I don't know. I managed to get him beat because he barely lost a race since. But no, it's just amazing to work with such top quality horses, and
just riding work on them. It was just. And we look back on some of those Cheltenham Festival reruns on the Racing UK or whatever, and horses that we perhaps didn't think were all that classy, that we took for granted, right, and weren't in the top work groups. They're all there and thereabouts turning for home. It was incredible. We think that a lot when we see all the reruns.
Well, another legacy from the Duke, obviously, is that you two met and got married, and are now in a training team together. What would have been the biggest lessons you'd learnt from him professionally as a trainer?
Well, before we say that, he actually nearly split us up at one stage. Martin had a spare ride and he couldn't get hold of us because we'd gone out for supper, and he rung my parents days back in the day before mobile phones, and when we got home, or I got home to my parents, they said, "Oh, the Duke's trying to get hold of you. I think Martin's got a spare ride." And I think they weighed you a couple of days later and you were heavy.
No, it's wrong. She's got the story wrong. It was on a horse I'd won two races on, and a horse called Airshot, and then he had 2 penalties. I rode him at Worcester and he got beat, finished second. And he popped me on the scales afterwards, and I was quite heavy, so he totally blamed this horse getting beat on Belinda taking me out for too many suppers.
So then I rang him up that night, and he was obviously gutted that he'd got beaten on this horse, and he said, you can't come and visit tonight because the Duke says we've got to finish. And I was like, oh my God, that's unbelievable. So I went in the next morning, and I didn't go over, went in the next morning and rode out, and as I was leaving after second lot, he said, "Oh, his normal, all right, darling." And I had never ever spoke back to him, and I said, "No, actually, I'm not all right. You've told Martin he's got to finish with me, and I'm not happy about it." And he actually didn't really do confrontation. He barked, but then he just wanted you not to. So he couldn't believe that coming from me. So I remember I've got visions of him going back into the house going, all right, darling, all right. And off he went, and we carried on seeing each other then, and that was it. He came to our wedding.
So at what point did you decide to leave the saddle, Martin, and become a trainer?
I rode for Dave Nicholson for probably just under 3 years, and he rode a good few winners for him and sat on a few nice horses, but he's just so competitive there, and where the lights have started off there was Richard Dunwoody, then Adrian Maguire, Warren Marsden, David Bridgewater, then Richard Johnson came along, then Chop Thornton came along.
And loads of others as well.
Robert Massey, just endless jockeys, and all fighting for the same rides, and it was just thought it was time to just try somewhere else. So I went and joined Knights of Whiston Davis, rode for him for a couple of years. Again, had success, but I just feel you need to be in the top 10 to make a proper career out of being a jockey. I had some nice winners for Nigel. I won the champion bumper on a horse called King's Road, but I was never going to get to that top level, so I just decided to call it a day. I'd enjoyed what I'd done, and I was so keen to train horses, and it's just taken off, and it's going really well.
But in the meantime, you had a little bit of spell as a groundsman at Cheltenham Racehorse, and Dave Nicholson's son John was head groundsman at that time, and Simon Clace.
Yeah, so it was really good experience there, and then as well as working there, that went to part-time because the point-to-pointers, we started off training point-to-pointers first, and actually we started with one horse we bought from Nigel Twist and Davis called Bosun's Mate, and that was my first win under rules, and actually Belinda rode it at Sandown in a hunter chase, so it all started from one horse. 15 years ago, and now we're heading towards 50 horses, so it's just, it's going good.
But Dinah Nicholson once said it, they only started off with one horse, so she said, never give up hope, didn't she?
Yeah.
When we first started.
That leads me nicely into, I was going to ask Belinda about your point-to-point career. My little ferreting around tells me you had 12 winners, and you even rode a winner at Sandown. Did you enjoy that?
Absolutely loved, yeah. I didn't actually have, I think my strike rate was quite good, just that I rode mainly for Martin, nice horses, didn't ride anything particularly scary, and it was just lovely. I loved it. I had lots of fun. Actually, I rode a few local trainer, Dolly Maud, who's still a good friend. I rode Newton Point, who was at the Dukes as well. He was a good horse for him. I won a few on him as well. Enjoyed it, but Mum was always petrified, and she wasn't very well towards the end of my career, and she wasn't overly keen on me racing. And we'd been married for a little bit, and I kind of thought it's probably time for me to start a family at some stage, and we need to start making a proper business of it. And although people, you know, I wasn't ever going to be top class lady jockey, so that's kind of why I gave up. And yeah.
Obviously racing on race courses is the glamour, but how important do you think point-to-point and grassroots racing is to national hunt racing?
I think point-to-point is really important, not only for getting the horses, and actually obviously the Irish point-to-points have been the source of so many of our horses that we've got over here now, but the English point-to-pointers now getting much better reputation as well of the youngsters. It used to be the English point-to-points were for the bosun's mate, for example, on his way back down, but now that they're having some really nice horses coming through that are making a lot of money at sales, which can only be good for us. But not only that, for the lads, I think it's just brilliant for lads to go, 16, 17-year-old lads, to go and where they're not under the glare of the Racing UK, at the races, ITV, they can go and make their mistakes that they are going to make out in the field and learn from those before they then...
And now they've got the pony racing, which is absolutely fantastic, which obviously Ireland did it a long time before we started, but that really gets these young jockeys going.
They're so lucky, and the support through the pony racing as well, that they have pony racing taster days and all the jockey coaches, and they are so supported. Freddie's starting properly this year because he's nearly 10, and it is fantastic how they do it. I'm very jealous. I wish we could have done pony racing when we
were... I might have been a bit better then.
But yes, the point-to-pointing is a perfect start. We just couldn't, we had to become a bit more commercial, so, you know, you nearly charge as much for training a point-to-pointer, you know, costs are as high, so that's why you got your licence out in the end, but we had such fun. It's good grounding, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And do you have people sort of scouting, keeping eyes open at points for potential superstars or purchases?
We have a friend I met at Dave Nicholson's, Jerry Hogan. He was an amateur there. He's a top bloodstock agent, so he's a good friend as well as being a good agent, and he's found lots of good horses for us. So he's most weekends he'd be point to pointing in Ireland, and yeah, just looking for ones to try and buy privately, or looking at ones which we know would be turning up at the Cheltenham sales, and I would trust him with my life. So no.
Yeah, so we're so lucky to have the connection with Jerry, and there's hardly a horse that he sent that we've got through him that hasn't won a race. I mean, we've just, you know, the likes of Champion Court and Creepy and Any Currency and Bunbane Head and all those. Anagotti, all through, you know, Jerry and
most of those Cheltenham winners.
Brilliant. So go pointing and spot a superstar before anybody else. That's